Okay. It's been about a week since I watched the Doctor Who 60th anniversary specials. Now, I have reviews up for all three on my Letterboxd, which, if I remember, I'll link below. Who knows if I'll remember. But I just felt that because Doctor Who is such like an integral part of the beginnings of this channel, I feel remiss if I didn't talk about these specials in some capacity here on this channel. So that's what I'm doing today. This is going to be a freeform, loose, off-the-cuff kind of conversational, classic talking vlog, if you will. Yeah, so right off the bat, if you want a very quick, brisk, just summary of my opinions, the first special, oh my god, the Star Beast, is that what it was called? I'm just trying to remember the titles. Was really rough. It had like some light in there, some good in there, but it was so buried by shit. It was rough, pretty bad. Anyway, honestly, like no joke, like I'm trying to think if you could just skip it. Like, I'm trying to think if you could just skip that and just know Donna's back and has her memories, and just that's it. And I would say from there, just anyway, Wild Blue Yonder, incredible episode of Doctor Who, very reminiscent of like Series 4 classics, like from that era that this is sort of paying tribute to. So like very reminiscent of like Midnight, Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead, those kind of stories. If you like those kind of Doctor Who stories, you'll love Wild Blue Yonder. It was very good. Very good standalone piece. And then the last special, The Giggle, also incredible. I'm still debating if Wild Blue Yonder or The Giggle was my favorite of the three. Both were very, very good, strong. I gave them 4 out of 5s, both on my Letterboxd. Very strong stories. Yeah, this one is more like a necessity, I would say, to watch if you're going to jump back into I'm not even going to try pronouncing the actor that's going to be playing the 15th Doctor's name, but he is incredible so far. But yeah, if you're going to be jumping into that, you need to watch The Giggle, I would say. But yeah, so those were my overall like short takes on each of the specials, but I'm going to go into more detail now. And so if you want to tune out now, by all means go ahead. If you want to keep listening to my rambling, by all means sit back, relax, you can tab over, I don't care what you do. We're in for a talking vlog, boys. Anyway, okay, so to start off with the Star Beast. This was really rough. It felt incredibly rushed, which is very surprising since they had 3 whole hour-long specials to essentially tell one story, which is why the 10th Doctor is back and how Donna fits in the picture again. And that's it. That's like what the core narrative of these 3 specials is. Yet, they rush pretty much all of that into like the first half of this one special. And it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna explain it. Donna is, I'm just gonna spoil it right now, so if you care about spoilers, stop. But Donna is able to get her memories back without dying, which was the whole conceit of the Doctor losing Donna and having the loss of his best friend. Like, she's able to get her memories back without dying is because she had a kid, and that kid, once she gave birth to that kid absorbed half of the consciousness of the meta-crisis. So, because it was split in half, it was perfectly palpable for each of them to hold half of it somehow. Even though that was never stated as a thing that was possible, never stated as a thing that would prevent this in the first half. Back in season 4, when this all went down. So, yeah. Anyway, what I was trying to say is that I felt that was incredibly lazy writing. It was just incredibly rushed. How do we get Donna back in the picture without dying, like remembering her time with the doctor without dying. And I thought that was very lazy and quite frankly disappointing, because that was one of my key like, if Russell T Davies does this well, like that was going to be one of my key tests for these specials, and in my opinion, he failed. But hey, who am I? Who am I? People liked it, by all means. Anyway, so on that front, Donna now has a child, and this child, like, I am so hyped for, like, you know, any LGBTQ representation. However, it's like done very poorly and disappointingly here. So Donna's child is named Rose, and because of like the deep subconscious memories of the meta-crisis and that have seeped into both of them, because that is Donna's child's chosen name, because it's very unclear. I probably have to watch it again if Donna's child is trans female or non-binary. It's unclear. I'm not really sure. But for the lack of clarity they have around that, I don't know what that is. For the lack of clarity around that, they do make a big ass deal about that, and I'll get to that. But anyway, so I thought that was like a cool conceit that she chose the name Rose, and like was making all these like I'm gonna use that they them pronouns just to be safe. That their hobby is making these like plushes and selling them, and the plushes were all different monsters from like the Doctor's past adventures. However, there's some issues around that, because there's monsters in there from Adventures of the 11th Doctor, the 12th Doctor, the 13th Doctor, and how would the meta-crisis consciousness, which emerged during the time of the 10th Doctor, how would they have those future memories? So that was a little unexplained and a little bit of a plot hole there, but you know, it's definitely not something that's a big deal. You know, it's like a one little like thing I don't really care about. Okay, so my biggest issue with this episode, I would say, was it was so bad that I'm having a hard time even really remembering what the revelation was. It was like they explain like Donna's child's non-binariness by saying that like the meta-crisis, because the Doctor is a non-binary entity, like the meta-crisis consciousness like caused that being born into them, caused them to be non-binary, and I think that defeats the entire point of having a non-binary character in the piece in the first place. Like, it's not representation, which I would have, that's like saying being, I know it's trying to like, you know, do like being non-binary special, but like what it's really saying is that like non-binariness is alien and it's a sci-fi concept, and it kind of kills its own message in that sense. It kills what it's trying to do. And I thought that was just quite frankly terrible, and I was just like face palming at those reveals. But those are pretty much my big issues with the first special. Honestly, like, if you're willing to just say, okay, like, let's skip, let's like just know that 10 is back as the 14th Doctor for some reason, and Donna has her memories back. That's like, if you were willing to just like have that logical conceit, I would skip episode 1, because, my friends, episodes 2 and 3 were just straight up incredible. Not favorites of all time or anything like that, because they did have quite frankly, a lot of issues. And I will get to those, but they are still, like, I gave them all. Sorry, it's a very windy day, so I'm going to be blowing my nose. I gave them both 4 out of 5s, as I said. They were still great. As I said before, not much to say about Wild Blue Yonder specifically, because it's one of those standalone stories that, like, works really well as just a standalone sci-fi piece. The setting was incredible. Like, it's so, like, that wide, huge, vast ship, like that, like, you'll know what I mean if I saw it. It's just with, like, the, like, side hallways, like, narrow, tight, like, the juxtaposition of these, like, narrow, tight corridors you essentially have to crawl through that surround this giant, like, endless expanse was, like, such backrooms type shit. I loved it. Like, they were, like, definitely taking in the, like, backrooms phenomenon when they were crafting the setting for that episode, and I highest praise for that setting. Sorry, you have to see my gross nose blowing. Anyway, yeah, I would say my one issue with that episode really were the monsters of the week, so to say, the entities that caused the conflict in this episode, because, like, they would have been stronger if they were kept more mysterious. Like, I know they were trying to do you know, Boston Narada type thing, like a her turn out the lights motif with my arms too long kind of thing, which was, you know, clever, and I think that's going to be, like, sticking around in the, you know, the younger echelons of the fandom for sure. But I thought it'd be, like, especially when they turn giant, start chasing and grow these fangs, like, I'm just like, come on. Like, I think it would have been better if they went more eerie with it and less cheesy with it. Like, if they went with, like, a more, like, a midnight vibe. Midnight might be my favorite episode, Drew. It's very hard to say. But yeah, if they went more with the midnight vibe, I think it could have been stronger. But still, it was very strong. And yeah, very, very good. And yeah, I know Russell T Davies wrote novels of these 3 episodes to sort of expand on them. This one I probably wouldn't recommend reading, simply because it's a very visual piece. It's a very, like, very dependent on the setting. That is a very, like, so I would recommend watching. But the next one, I would say I'm definitely going to pick up the novel and read it. So I guess I'll transition into the giggle right now. For such a shitty title, this was a wonderful episode. And I'm so glad they brought back the toy maker. Not just because of the Spy Kids toy maker, but because, like, this could have 100% been a role that was filled like, by the Master. Like, a Neil Patrick Harris Master would have been so popular. Fans would have loved it. But we just had so much for the Master in both the 12th and the 13th Doctor's eras that, like, quite frankly, getting a little sick of the Master. Especially after the Power of the Doctor, which was good. But, yeah, I'm getting a little sick of them. And I'm glad they went with, like, a new, almost Lovecraftian type menace here. And not new, because the Toymaker is actually the first Doctor villain. And that is so wild, bringing back, like, a one-off first Doctor villain. I think they may have come back later. They might have come back in the 7th Doctor's era. I really gotta get on watching all of Classic Who that's available. That's, like, a real, like, bucket list item for me. But, yeah, anyway. I'm so glad they brought this studio, because the Toymaker is such an interesting villain. In the sense that, like, they have all the power that you could possibly have. They're this insanely powerful Lovecraftian entity, yet they live their life, like, dictated by this arbitrary rule set, and, like, they're so dedicated to this way of living and this arbitrary rule set that they've imposed on themselves, that that's what ends up being their downfall. Like, they have all the power in the world to defeat the Doctor, yet because of their own restrictions and will that they want to instill on the universe, like, binding themselves by their own rules is what causes their downfall. And I think that's such an interesting take on a villain, especially in a show like this. And I was so worried that I was like, oh god, they're getting Neil Patrick Harris to play the villain. Like, I was so worried that it would be like, oh, it's just gonna be Neil Patrick Harris. But, like, it was such a good character and unique villain that I was like, oh, it's like, I wasn't just seeing Neil Patrick Harris. I was seeing the toy maker, that just this entity that just happened to look like Neil Patrick Harris. And I think that was, like, that just shows the testament of the character writing right there. And did Russell T Davies write this episode? I can't remember if he wrote all three or not, but it just shows whoever wrote this episode, be it Russell T Davies or someone else, that just shows the power of their writing, that they could do that. Take like a really, really popular actor and make you not see the actor. That's such a rare talent. Anyway, so one of my favorite villains in Doctor Who, to be honest. I loved the Toymaker. Anyway, the sort of climax and resolution of this episode, I had issues, but personally, I am leaning toward the positive and really cherishing it. Simply because I'll just say the way they defeat the villain by using their own rules and dictates against them, great, incredible, best way to do it. Anyway, so I don't know if this was mentioned before in the continuity, could have very well been mentioned somewhere in Classic Who or Big Finish or something like that, but the Doctor, the 14th Doctor, David Tennant, again, undergoes something called oh, sorry, I thought I heard like an animal like crying or something. Anyway, Doctor undergoes what they call a bi-generation, which is essentially a split generation in which, rather than simply regenerating into the 15th Doctor, again, I will not try to pronounce that name, the Doctor splits off, and so the 15th Doctor is a new being that splits off of the 14th Doctor, and rather than just transforms. So now you have the 14th Doctor and the 15th Doctor existing simultaneously. And my initial take was like, oh no, they're doing this so they can have like episodes with David Tennant still, and then episodes with the 15th Doctor, and just have like two congruent Doctor Who narratives, and they can just have Doctor and Donna going on adventures, and then the Doctor going on new adventures, so they can just sort of have their cake and eat it too. And I was like, oh no, they're really not doing that. They could still do that. They did leave room to do that, but I think the way they ended it leans towards more likely that they're not going to take that approach, which I really appreciated. And it was a little weak, but it seems like the logic that they made for David Tennant being the 14th Doctor, returning to that face, was that essentially that the Doctor has been like running for so long, essentially since like that they, and like focusing on doing good and being selfless and not taking care of themselves for so long, that essentially they brought back the most iconic iteration of the Doctor to allow them to sort of have their rest and have their reward. And as someone who, one of my like biggest comfort characters is the 10th Doctor, and as someone who cherishes that iteration like so much, it was very heartwarming to see the 10th Doctor finally get the rest and family that he deserves. So essentially 14 decides to stay on Earth and live with the nobles and essentially be a member of their family and just live peacefully in that sense. While 15 continues, it was very roughly explained, and this is why I still have some issues with it, but like, essentially 15 absorbs the potential rest that 14 would have gotten from retiring, and essentially is able to live rejuvenated and continue on their like journey of saving and exploring, and it was hard to explain. Essentially they absorbed that, but which makes very little sense, but essentially so 14, David Tennant, retires essentially. But the thing is, they were able to, in a bullshit hack fraud writing way, they were able to duplicate the TARDIS and give the TARDIS a bi-generation alongside the Doctors. So, and I wish they didn't do this. I really wish, because this is how they like kind of sneakily have their cake and eat it too, by leaving a TARDIS with David Tennant. So now David Tennant has a TARDIS, and he's going on like it's implied that he's going on little adventures with Donna and New Rose, Donna's child, and it implies that they're going on little adventures, but it mostly says that the Doctor, this iteration of the Doctor that we know and love, has settled down and has retired and is like reaping the reward for all the good they've done by having a family and living groundedly. But the issue is, so it's very unexplained. Can this Doctor not regenerate now? Is this the last generation? Because they split off. So it's like, yeah, I guess what they're trying to do is that the Doctor gets to end, and the Doctor gets to retire and live happily ever after for all the good they've done, which I love, while also getting to continue on forever and simultaneously. And I'm just really worried that they're going now. They didn't have to do this to get that message across, but they purposely gave David Tennant a second TARDIS, which means that I'm worried that they're just going to throw in random episodes of David Tennant going on adventures and bring it back for every special and milk him till he's skin and bones, which he already almost is. And I'm worried that they're going to do that, but alas, I still liked what they did, and I still like that they gave this iteration of the Doctor the reward they deserve for all the good they've done. And I'm really, really excited about the new Doctor, because for like the 10-15 minutes we did spend with the 15th Doctor, he was so great. He was so great. He was just so fun and so kind, and like, I just cannot wait to see like his interaction, because like honestly, like Jodie Whittaker, as much as I loved her Doctor, she was pretty much playing the same Doctor as David Tennant. Like, she was pretty much playing a female version of the 10th Doctor. And having Jodie Whittaker immediately followed by David Tennant was like, this wasn't really a change. And it was pretty much the same Doctor. Like, I felt like you could just put in Jodie Whittaker and it would be the same, like, motions. However, like, the 15th Doctor is just so unique and refreshing as a unique personality. And he's so, like, fun and, like, whimsical, but also, like, so grounded and, like, so caring to those around him, especially himself. Like, the way he cares for the 10th Doctor, like, 14, and, like, lets him rest and gives him the inspiration he needs and the permission he needs to rest is just, like, I don't know, so good. I love that. Anyway, that about sums up. I feel like I'm going in circles here with this whole ending thing, but that about sums up my thoughts on the specials. Like, a lot of good here, but a lot of shit here too. But I'm really excited still to see the 15th Doctor's path forward. We're getting the Christmas special, was that next week already? So I'll do a video on that too, probably. Let me know what you guys think. If you I would love to know your thoughts on the specials in the comments below. If you watched this all the way through, sit down and care to comment. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. I'm really excited to see what Russell T Davies does. One of my favorite writers is back. And, you know, for all the bad that there was here, I'm optimistic still. This left me with an optimistic taste of my mouth. So let's see what happens going forward.